Wendy Red Star is a critically acclaimed contemporary multimedia artist of Upsaloga, Crow, and Irish descent. With humor, wit, and celebration of Crow heritage, Red Star creates identity-based artwork that aims to challenge and decolonize false settler narratives that exploit American indigenous cultures. Her message is conveyed through mediums like photography, collage, sculpture, and textiles. Red Star was born in 1981 and was raised in the Crow Reservation of Montana. Her Crow upbringing fundamentally influenced her cultural identity-based work. However, during early years, Red Star struggled with otherness that came with being part Indigenous. This continued at the University of California, where she earned a Master of Fine Arts in 2006. Red Star noticed that her professors were not really able to talk about her work or were uncomfortable positioning themselves in a place where they didn't have knowledge. She cited this as a cause for worry about her work not being respected in the art world. However, with older age, Red Star realized the value of her work for driving Indigenous cultural continuity and decolonizing views about Indigenous people. Red Star uses satirical humor in her art to challenge colonial views about Indigenous people and to heal. Red Star is quoted saying, "Humor is healing to me. To have that element in my work is quite Crow. It's universal. People can connect with the work that way." Four Seasons excellently captures this humor. The series consists of 4 photos, each a constructed diorama representative of the seasons: fall, winter, spring, and summer. In the photos, Red Star poses with artificial animals and plants against a backdrop. The diorama setting ironically gestures to museum dioramas that displayed taxidermied animals and fake human models representing ancient societies. With Red Star dressed in traditional clothing and positioned still in the dioramas, Red Star points to a common settler view of Indigenous cultures being regarded as old or dead. This is whereby Indigenous people are characters frozen in a historic and primitive time. Also, Red Star's placement amongst artificial nature is a satirical gesture to the settler fetishized noble savage stereotype. This is whereby Indigenous people have mystical relationships with nature. The photo's vibrant colors set the tone of such romanticized views about Indigenous people. This tone contrasts against the tone set by Red Star's authentic Crow clothing and her serious yet confident facial expressions. Red Star appears to mock and reject the trivialized and inauthentic views about Indigenous people. Red Star advocates for authentic and respectful representation of American Indigenous culture. Another piece where Red Star advocates for accurate and respectful representation is 1880 Crow Peace Delegation, which consists of 10 manipulated historic photos of Crow leaders. The original photos were taken by Charles Bell in 1880. Red Star observed that the photos, as with many historic portraits of American Indigenous people, had no information about the subjects and were instead exploited and commodified by the general public. For instance, a photo of Chief Medicine Crow was used in an ad for Honest Tea. Red Star responds to this long-standing exploitation by writing notes and outlining details in red ink on the photos. Red Star's notes identify the leaders' names and comments on their regalia, achievements, and relationships. The notes also give the leaders voice, especially in their interactions with colonialism. For instance, Red Star writes on Chief Pretty Eagle's photograph, "My body sold to a collector for $500 and kept for 72 years at the American Museum of Natural History." Red Star also injects her humor by writing on another, "I am not a fan of the white man." Red Star's red notes visually contrast and dominate against the black and white photos. Attention is drawn to the notes and the outline traditional wear. Red Star is quoted saying, "I wanted that red mark on history." Red Star's red marks on history challenged the exploitation of unknown or voiceless Indigenous persons by giving them voice and identity. Red Star's art is also critical of other identity dynamics like gender. In her series Upsaloga Feminist, Red Star and her daughter pose in traditional crow elk tooth dress. The bright color schemes and female crow figures in Red Star's photos juxtaposes against historic black and white photos of crow subjects that were typically male and photos taken by Anglo-Americans. With this contrast, Red Star contests the colonial lens of how crow culture is perceived and reclaims this lens as an indigenous female artist. Also, the mirrored appearances of mother and daughter in the photos along with title projects the idea of indigenous cultural continuity through generations of strong female figures. Ultimately, Red Star's art is a powerful force in the decolonization of histories and views of indigenous culture.